touring off of your latest album, Toxic Positivity. How has the reception been to it? Because a lot of it sounds like a little bit more of you're channeling some of your older sound from your previous first few albums.
Yeah, it's been amazing. The reception's been really good. We get a lot of people coming up and telling us how this kind of record and this kind of honesty really helps them in their life, and I think that's what music's really all about.
Yeah, people come dressed up in flower shirts and flower beards.
Flower beards,
like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's not a flower beard. It was
so it's kind of cool. They're taking the album cover and kind of rolling with it. It's awesome.
Yeah, repurposing it like it's 2014 again into that Tumblr
For sure,
era
for sure.
all over.
Dang, that's a throwback.
Oh, yeah. And then you guys also just did a collab with Demi Lovato, which I love Demi Lovato. I was big into the Disney Channel kid and everything like that, the pop-punk Disney Channel type of vibe. How was it working with Demi to put out this single again?
Yeah, it was cool. She's really nice. I was honored that she asked me to do it, and the song turned out great. Really stoked. Be really cool for the U's. Big exposure. And
Yeah.
She's got a few followers on Instagram.
Couple.
Yeah, just a little bit,
Two or three. It is just kind of crazy that I was into the U's from the first record on. Was that kid at high school who was like, you got to check out this band, and everybody's like, no, why would we listen to this? And now to see 20 years later, everybody's like, no, the U's.
Why would I listen to that?
People were still like, why the fuck would you listen to that? No, it's like it is such a cultural moment in emo, pop punk, in that Warped Tour scene kind of thing. Of like now it's just kind of mainstream, and everybody's just like, yeah, we loved the U's growing up. We want to work with them. We want to have them on all this stuff. So it must be pretty cool.
It's really, really cool to still be a band after 23 years. We just feel so lucky. Every single day is like a new, amazing moment for us. We can't believe we're still up there. All the shows are super fun. We get along better than we ever have. The band's tighter than it's ever been. So yeah, things are all amazing.
Well, and it's cool because we have always just been playing music, always been in the U's. We never,
Yeah, we never broke up.
Yeah.
We never took a fucking break.
Yeah.
We never went anywhere. We've been here the whole fucking time.
I just like to throw that out there sometimes.
That's what I'm putting out.
Sounds like you said that.
Sounds like you said that before.
While the dads in the chat are very pissed that there's no other Guns N' Roses, but they are a little stoked because some of them do so like Paramore because they're hip and they're like the modern emo dads. How can you influence the up and coming emo, soon to be emo dads with Run the Ghouls?
We made it.
Yeah.
We made
5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. It was a hard challenge. 5 out of 10.
Okay. I'm going to try to answer it as directly as possible. How can we
my dad likes it.
Yeah,
so
yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah,
it's my dad's favorite song of ours, so we got one. My dad doesn't like any of our music.
Oh. Show him this transition. Does he like Guns N' Roses?
He doesn't like them either. No.
Oh, okay.
It's like they appreciate this shit. At least at this point, I think he respects it.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
Your mom likes some of it. Yeah, my mom actually is like she
became a fan.
Yeah, she doesn't listen to any like scream music or like any like emo music or whatever. But she's happy with us doing it. So she likes it. She'll listen to it all the time.
I'd like to just point out that if it wasn't obvious, we're related.
Oh yeah.
We have the same mom and dad.
Yeah.
Some people don't get it, so I just want to make it known.
I mean,
it happens.
Yeah. It should be a thing of just like, hey, I'm glad that you're doing it, I'm glad that you're making the music that you love. And you just keep doing that. And, I hope your show goes really well. I won't be there, but I hope.
Yeah, but you can like text me and let me know.
You know?
Like, that'd be chill.
We've played, we've been a band for 7 years? Something like that. And our parents have been to one show. So.
And that was at the very beginning, and we fucking sucked. I mean, it's like compared to now, I don't think we were garbage back then, but of course, it's just like we were very unpolished. So I just keep thinking, in my head, they still think that's how we play. And they're probably just like, how the fuck are they still out here doing this shit, playing like that?
The next time you sell at a show, you're gonna be like, guys, that's sold out. And be like, how the fuck? Excuse me?
People like that shit.
They're like, damn, people must like bad music nowadays, huh?
Back in my day with Guns N' Roses.
Oh no, not the Guns N' Roses.
Oh man.
Not for them. They're just like, oh, y'all don't sound like Temptation, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're not Bruno Mars over here. So sorry,
Why don't
besties.
you do a little bit more of that, singing in your songs? Why do you do so much of the...
Stevie Wonder's a real musician. You should be like him.
You should be like him.
I would get like my parents being like, "Oh, I want to come to the show." It's like, it's late. They're like, maybe next time. And anything during the day, it's like, no.
Yeah.
Well, I probably wouldn't like know any songs anyway. It's like, yeah, probably not.
Oh no.
They want to learn your own songs? Damn.
I wouldn't play them my songs.
I remember, this is like kind of a tangent, but it just reminded me when I was in like one of my first bands ever. It was like back when everyone was doing like the Christian metalcore thing, and we were playing at my church, and I remember like we like announced at the church service like, hey, we're doing like a show, if anyone wants to come. And I'm like, why are we doing it? Like, why are y'all making us tell them this? It's a bunch of old people, like they're not gonna know. And I remember like this one lady like got up and she's like, oh, are you gonna have like the lyrics printed out so we can sing along? And we were like, no, it's not that kind of.
It's not that. It's not that lady.
Like we were
so
covering like
sorry.
Devil Wears Prada and like A Day to Remember, and it was like, it's not. Never mind. Don't come.
Like, don't come. It's okay. Tell your like kid to come. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That reminds me, I was like looking at my Spotify today. They're like, oh, for more fans of Linkin Park, and one of the top results for the playlist for a Spotify generated playlist was "This Is Cornerstone," and it was all the Christian rock music. And I was like,
All right.
oh no.
Oh man. Yeah. It was rough back then when that was the whole scene for some reason.
You had to let them have their time, and then let them get bullied out, and then that's it.
Yeah.
You know what? It's a lesson learned. That's what God wanted, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually denounce the faith.
Like all of them do.
Yeah.
And say fuck like 8 times on your record to really drive the point
That's how
home.
you know.
Yeah.
And that's also when you know that they're not as good of a band anymore.
Damn, Caleb.
Oh man.
They let
we
Jesus
said we
out
had
of their
takes.
We had takes.
We were saying too. We were saying before we were recording, so we'll just make sure the audience knows you can have a different take. That's okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
These are our
like
takes,
things.
and we think that some of these bands were better when they let the Lord and the light into their heart, and they wrote songs called "Dogs Can Grow Hair All Over" and things like that.
Oh, they fucking played that shit when we saw them recently, and it was crazy. Like,
They know their roots.
They know what the kids really want.
They know their
roots above
and branches below.
Yep.
Got 'em.
Got
'em. We got
All
fans. We got fans.
Oh man.
It is interesting to be like how do you? I went to church shows for bands that we just rented out the church. The church just letting us play a show here, and it would be like whatever. It was just a bunch of bands from the suburbs and shit that would come through. But I'm like, was there anybody like from the church who was like, oh, I'm just gonna go check out the show that's happening?
I
I'm gonna
think
go
it
check out
happened
the
at
gig.
ours. I think it happened at ours, and they didn't stay for very long. But I think they showed up. I don't remember really, but yeah, I don't know. We had like a weird scene where I lived because I grew up in like West Virginia, so it was like we had like a bunch of like stoner like deathcore kids, and then we had like the Christcore scene, and there was like
Oh my god, that's a
and they,
real
and they
mix.
both hated each other, and it was just yeah.
I mean, they're probably just thinking like they go in there like these damn kids, these dang kids, they're gonna be damned to hell. But whatever gets them in God's house,
whatever gets them, maybe they'll leave with a nice
that's literally
pamphlet.
what they were like. Like they were like, yeah, we're gonna get like all the mountain kids that are just like doing meth and listening to Chelsea Grin to come in here and hear Jesus.
Convert to God.
Yeah, it was a time.
Wait, were these like the Christian like mega churches, or was it like actual like old like Catholic churches? Or
it was like an old Episcopal church. So
okay,
and then they had like a community center that was just like an old building that like had like a gym in it, and that's where we did the shows. We only did a few of them, but there was another church that we went to, or not that I went to as going to the church, but like would do shows all the time. That was like, it still wasn't a mega church, but it was like a little more modern. And they just had like shows there all the time. Like they had like the dude from Korn's other band come play there. Like Love and Death played there. They had some cool bands play there. That one was like actually kind of popping, but
oh my god,
a well-known venue church.
Hey guys, how do we get like hardcore church shows to come back in 2023? I definitely remember actually finding you like when I was an undergrad in college radio for Candy Hearts, and I was like, oh my god, like this is the stuff that I really like and I'm really into. And then you kind of pivoted, and I still really, really liked it. So what kind of caused you to do that pivot? Was it just like, you know, you were just like, I'm done with this like emo pop punk kind of stuff, or is there anything that kind of like helped you shifted into getting more into that genre?
It was a slow shift. It was like a lot of different things. Definitely, I felt like I was kind of growing in, like my favorite music in high school was really more like I was obsessed with Saddle Creek Records. I loved things like Bright Eyes, Rilo Kiley, stuff like that. And I always wanted to make music that was really so heavily influenced in that. Like I wanted to make music that sounded like my favorite records. And, you know, I loved pop punk in middle school, and I feel like when I started Candy Hearts, I was like going for more of an indie vibe, and then one day I'm like, you know what, I want to write all these punk songs because I'm like really vibing on like the Thermals and like you know, old Blink-182 or whatever. And then people just liked it, so I like ran with it without even thinking. And I'm so bad at speaking. So I ran with that without thinking, and you know, after years doing that, I was kind of like, oh, I want to make something kind of different. And at the same time that I started feeling that way, I just started being a bit broken down by like the misogyny in the pop punk industry. Like when I first got into that kind of music, it was really like people who were struggling to fit in, people who felt too sensitive and too artistic and too nerdy and too rejected by like the popular kids in school, by the mainstream, by those things, which is something I really identified with. But the pop punk scene of 2020 was largely like the jocks that would stuff people like me into lockers. I mean, no one ever did that. I kind of did that to them. But, but you know, figuratively, if I was someone else like me, you know, those kind of people who like, I guess it makes sense because if you look at the old pop punk records, it's all about hating your girlfriend, but it doesn't seem like it's coming from a place of misogyny to me in most of those cases. It seems like it's coming from a place of like, this relationship didn't work out and I'm really hurt. Whereas when I was touring, it seems so much came from the place of like, we don't value women. They are here to serve us and we don't care what they have to say. And I had so many experiences on tour that were just so, from microaggressions to like real aggressions to like dudes in bands just like grabbing my boob as a joke or grabbing my butt and thinking it's funny, and me not being able to say anything because I have to have these men like me and want to be my friend for them to take me on tour, which in the end, most people didn't want to retain any sort of connection with me when they went home to their wives because they didn't view me as a peer. And that was something that I was just not willing to live with in like silence anymore. And I wanted to find a space that had more women in it and was more friendly to people like me.
I think that's been the biggest thing that I've seen. I started working in the music industry with a lot more like indie rock and indie pop. And over the years, I've obviously heard like an emo and pop punk, and I see like the stark contrast of like diversity with that across the board, especially with women and just non-men in general. And I think also to the point where when you were touring as Candy Hearts, that was what I like to call the brocore years, where you had all these more like jock-centric bands kind of come out. And I personally, like, I never got into them. I have a lot of friends who are still really into it now because these are bands who are obviously still active and touring. But it always set me off, like, strangely, because I'm like, these guys would actively, like, would want to bully us. Why are we giving them the attention?
It was so weird.
Yeah.
It was so weird because I started in the very, like, DIY punk scene of, like, making my own albums, playing house shows, things like the scene was like people who would go to like Fest in Gainesville, and those people largely don't have a tolerance for that kind of thing, and they're very accepting. But the minute that I started getting success and doing things that were more mainstream, like Warped Tour, like the Glamour Kills tour, like those things that would be sponsored by Zoomies or whatever, like that festival I played that was like at Six Flags theme park. Like when I got into that world, it was just unbelievably misogynistic in a way that I was just like, it was just shocking.
I don't know. Like, cause I mean, I was just such an emo kid in high school that like was definitely, well, emo was getting really popular when I was in high school. So I wasn't pushing the lockers. I was more the guy who's just like, no, I'm too cool to push in locker. I listen to the Used.
Hell yeah.
But, and then like Fall Out Boy took off, and then everybody in my high school was like, oh my God, you listen to Fall Out Boy? Like, you're so cool. I'm like, I hate Fall Out Boy. I'm too
Oh my
cool
God,
for
we would
that.
have been like best friends.
I was so sassy about it at the time because like I don't know. I was like, it's got to be heavier and it's got to have like that, I don't know, that one vibe to it, the like screamo and the post-hardcore sort of feeling to it. So I found it very strange when I then like would hear a lot of this, because I felt like some of these dudes are like very effeminate. Like, you shouldn't be misogynistic. Like, that's why we're all here. We are weird, and gender's a construct, and all this shit is so like we're smoothing it out. We're not trying to find all the little gaps between us. And like, yeah, I don't know why that changed, but I'm always very disappointed to hear, because I was like, it just sucks, because you're like, I love these bands.
Resurgence. It was like it was like the jocks who like 10 years later discovered Newfound Glory and started a band who were like the worst people and enabled by everyone around them. Yeah.
It's like, I would say, well, it came from the influence of a Newfound Glory. Not that, I mean, I don't know Newfound Glory. I'm not putting anything on them, and I'm not removing them from any implications.
Allegedly, all these bands have started from Newfound Glory.
Allegedly. But it just feels like, yeah, you're right. There was like a lot of bands that came out after that just sort of like never had to go through the same shit, but could pick up a guitar because it was already made cool by bands like Newfound Glory or Blink-182. And it's like, oh, the guitar is cool now. And it's like, no, fuck you. It's supposed to be for the nerds and the weirdos. And you're... Stop taking my cool thing.
When I was in high school, I had like one friend who liked alternative music. I didn't know anybody else.
The internet. It's like, it's free to shut the fuck up, but it's also free to say the weirdest and dumbest shit. As we were also saying, I'm just getting the most unhinged comments in our YouTube because of a video we made, and it's like, yeah, I do feel like it is a certain person who can handle the negativity. I don't think it's a good thing for anyone to be able to handle it, and I certainly don't believe that anybody should be faced with it at a constant rate. I've said to Lizzie, like, Lizzie, I don't want them to have any room for like misogyny or any incel type behavior. I'm like, please target them at the straight white guy. I can fucking handle it. I'm gonna be okay. But it's still, they find ways. They find like, oh man, you'll find something to just say the dumbest thing about or the meanest thing about. And I'm happy that there's a more positive social media. It's also why I like Instagram, because it's like, you have to post a photo or you have to post something. You can't just like bullshit it. It's not just like, I typed out for 2 seconds. Like, there's a little bit more of like a barrier to posting something on Instagram to be mean or to be rude, except in the comment section, which I also read there, and I turn it off.
I mean, I would like, you see people post like relationship photos on Instagram, and you see people on Twitter go, people who post relationship photos aren't as happy as they pretend to be. I'm like, I get it. You're a Twitter user. That checks out actually. Like, just just stay over there.
It's like, you haven't touched grass. You haven't talked to anybody, period. You haven't felt joy in years. Calm down. Other people do. It's fine.
Well, it's tough. Like, I was literally having this conversation today because like I have such a love-hate relationship with Twitter. Like, a huge portion of my income comes because of my Twitter, whether it's through sponsored content or the people that I meet. But for years, like, I was not good in person with people for a very long time. I was like cripplingly shy. Like, a joke, like a very serious, real joke is that I used to, like, I don't think I hit on my first girl at a bar till like 26. I couldn't talk to people, but I knew how to use the internet to meet people. Like, I remember when I got to college, my dorm mates were really into Alexis on Fire, who I'd never heard of at the time. Gave me a CDRW, if people remember those, of like their entire catalog. Yeah. And then the whole way I got into the music blog scene, I was like, wait, there's something called Twitter where I can meet other people who like didn't live in my hometown who like the same music as me. And that's how Mind Equals Blown was founded. Was like me and 2 other guys found each other who liked post-hardcore music. But then years and years later, like after I built this presence for myself about marketing, like I experienced my first hate on the internet. It was really jarring for me because like that was my safe place to meet people. And when I experienced that first time was during pandemic. So in a 1-week period, like I went through a breakup. Me and my parents stopped speaking to each other over political and family trauma things. And I had the first time people came at me on Twitter for something just like blatantly false about a small business that I ran. And like, I never felt more alone in my life because I had been using the internet to meet people for the last 10 years. And I'm still like, my friend today, she's like, you're still mourning that Twitter will never be this for you again, because now you got to deal with these people all day long. So it's weird.
That's so interesting and terrible at the same time, because I know that some people have talked about third spaces as well. And I think in a way, like social media, like just in general, certain social medias have been that third space for folks, especially during the pandemic where people, a bunch of people started TikToks. So a lot of people started their own independent ventures during this time. And they're like, well, this is my one place I can just like hone in on and focus and not deal with anything else.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So like for me, like it was like, I mean, I felt like I lost like something really important to me and like a really like essential tool for me to connect with people. And like, don't get me wrong, I've like come out the other side. I figured out how to use it again. Like, but it's not, I've not been able to find like the same safety with it that I had before. Like, and I mean, a lot of this I think is pandemic stuff. Like people during the most unhinged people were more online than ever. A lot of them built audiences and got new dopamine hits that they weren't used to. And they just stuck around. Like, and I miss the day. Like, I miss the days when I had 10,000 followers. It was a different time. Like now, like with my audience size, like I get hate every day. That's completely nonsensical.
On that note, there's a lot of bands who, obviously I think the interesting thing for like a band having to post on there too, or anybody who's doing a creative thing is like, it's not just like you're posting on there because you're like, I want to talk to people and I want to give my opinion and I want to have conversation. It's also like, hey, our new single just came out. Hey, we have an album coming out. Hey, we're going on tour. And like, it becomes a place where it's also advertising your stuff and putting yourself out there in a way that like most people will never be putting themselves out there because they don't even use their own profile photo and they can say whatever the fuck they want. And I know you're probably on the same page of like, you got to be on every platform. You got to be on Instagram. You got to be posting on TikTok. You got to be doing all this stuff. And so like, how do you think a band should be kind of navigating those types of things on all these platforms now that like we are post quote unquote, again, for the audience at home, quote unquote, post pandemic,
the new normal.
Now that we're like, the new normal, quote unquote.
Listen, I like to say in the newsrooms, there was a collective AP cell agreement that we are technically post pandemic now. It still exists, but it's not the pandemic, everything that we had to encounter before.
If alternative press says that's how we say it, then I'll do it.
Yes.
Got him.
No, I mean, so it's fun. Like, to me, bands and labels alike, especially from like the emo scene, are completely missing the opportunity like that comes with modern social media. Like, I mean, like Braden Bales will be one of my most played albums by the end of the year. Like, he went viral for Chronically Cautious and like had all these TikTok hits, and he's a kid, and like he's not backed. He actually has signed a record deal, but like he's a TikToker, and this era of this TikTok musician, that model could absolutely be replicated by a legacy band that's coming back, could be replicated by a brand new pop punk band. And it's just, I just don't think that there's been a ton of strategic thinking in the music social media world. Like, the labels have people, and like the labels still have a lot of good people, but we view TikTok as, what is the artist word? Gail? Is that what we were talking about earlier? Like,
yeah.
So like we think about like trending songs and we think about like plants, and there's so much more you can do on TikTok as a band. Like Arrows in Action is a perfect example. They have like, last time I looked, they had like a couple 100,000 followers. And most of what they do is the same style that a TikTok artist would do, where it's like they're taking the absolute catchiest part of their choruses. They're eliminating the millennial pause. So like the music starts right as soon as that TikTok begins. And they're trying different formats of this thing. And the rule of content is like, we all think we got to make new content all the time. Like I worked at ad agency. If we were paid to make new content, that's not the best strategy for like most of the time, especially for bands. If you got a chorus you believe in, or like it's your best catchiest thing, pump that out over and over and over and over and over again through as many different formats as possible. Because if it's as good as like, the audience will tell you if they actually like it. The algorithm will get you to your potential audience. But like, to me, like I'm not seeing the bands like, and again, I'm 34. I'm listening to a lot of legacy bands at this point from the scene. Like Balance Composure will be one of my most played this year. Like I found you guys because I was Googling like, does anybody talk to Bemis and say anything came back? And I listened to that whole interview. But Saying Anything's a great one. Like I would love to work with Max on like showing a generation who he is and what his music looks like, but there's just not that many social strategic thinkers within the music scene.
I think too, there's been so many folks that we've tried to talk to, like either them like legacy bands, or even there's a couple newer acts. We get like a bunch of pressers that are in our email every day. And there was one that like made me stop. I was walking and reading and I'm like, what are you sending me? They're like, we're this band from here. We have no social media presence. And I'm like, this does nothing for either of us at this point. And I'm like, now I don't even want to listen to your music because this is, again, not going to do anything for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, one of my favorite albums from the last couple of years is this band called Agi, who I only recently figured out that it's pronounced that way. It's ADJY. And they were signed to, I forget which one of the little tiny indies, but then Triple Crown picked them up. And that's how I got on them. And Zach actually texted me back, I think this will be your thing. And I was obsessed. Like their last album, it's a 75-minute concept record where there's a story, and then there's a narrator who's telling a different story about that story within it. And there's like, I got a book somewhere because they put out a hardcover book for you to like understand this thing. To me, it's genius. I absolutely love it. They don't have social media, and it drives me insane. Absolutely insane. I'm one of the only people that's even talked about them. And like, because of my following, their manager even got a hold of me because like, hi, I saw you actually like this band and you do marketing. And I'm like, I don't know how to help you. First of all, I don't have time. But second of all, I don't know how to help you guys. Like, be on the internet. Be there.
I just pulled them up on Spotify, and they don't even have like their pictures, their profile pictures, the album cover.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah. They have a cover photo on there. And I mean, you just got me very interested because if it's that big of like a musical project, I'm like, yeah, that's the kind of thing that probably a lot of people would be very into if they knew it existed.
Oh, yeah. I'm probably $70 into this band from owning multiple books that they've published about their own music to understand their lyrics and stories. I love concept records, but like, it's this genius thing. But they have no social. And to me, like, don't get me wrong, like from what I've learned about this guy, like he's like a musical mastermind genius kind of dude. I don't think he's the type who's going to sit there making TikToks. But at the same time, TikToks don't have to be this like cliche slapstick dancey type stuff. Like TikTok's just a distribution network. Like this is like therapists are big on TikTok. Like basketball stars are big on TikTok. It's just it's just an algorithm and a distribution platform. So you can present yourself, whatever's true to your band, true to your label. Like it's just, but you got to be there. You got to be willing to do it. And to me, like if you're going to do one thing, like we talked earlier, like, do you need to be on every social network? If I'm a band, I'm focusing on 3. I'm doing YouTube, I'm doing TikTok, I'm doing Instagram. I'm focusing on short form vertical content, like let's call it like say TikToks or Instagram Reels. And I'm posting the exact same thing on Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. And once you if you get better at it, or you have more time, or you have someone in the band or the label that's really interested in this and quite good at it, then maybe you vary off for different things. But that can get you to the right audience.
There's been just so many other bands that have come through recently that I feel is starting to get to that edging limit where we're gonna break out of this generic mold that everybody in the scene kind of has problems with, and we want to expand more and diversify. Are there any artists or acts recently that you personally are listening to that you really think are kind of leading the scene in that change?
Absolutely. I'm working with one of our artists right now, No Offense, who's from the UK and is trans and is very involved in the politics, not only in the UK, but in globally of what's happening with the LGBTQ community, and really using this scene as a great spot to kind of start it, because the alternative scene is a great place where a lot of us have a lot of the same views and want to learn more about that. I don't want to say culture, but the struggles there, and a lot of people that are now coming into our scene of music are experiencing the same things, and I think that he's a great example of someone who's very much leading in what he's doing.
I think the big thing too is that when punk came out, it was originally for the misfits, and now we have this resurgence of pop punk in the 21st century, and we have so many more people who are identifying with that than traditional punk for so many other reasons. So it is definitely an avenue for these other artists who have different lifestyles and different struggles that they have gone through to be able to go out there and say hey, I'm somebody who is trans, who's living my life successfully and can do this, and you guys can do this as well.
Exactly, and I think that our fans are looking to us and to see someone who looks like them, who's experiencing the same things as them. So I think that having more people in the LGBTQ community, more people who are female, I think is fantastic. And I'm so proud to be part of Hopeless Records, where I think we just checked our roster that over 50% of our roster currently is female.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's amazing for anyone in this scene of music, much less an independent rock label.
Right, and I know that because I'm on music journalism Twitter, and there's just so many people who will say oh, but look at these indie lineups, they have so many more women on here compared to these pop punk or emo lineups, and it's right, but they are out there. It is just harder to unfortunately get them out there because there's just a lot of misogyny and other bullshit that's out there.
It is, and I think that especially at our label, we're not just trying to make punk rock album with female, punk rock album with so-and-so. We're trying to blend the genres and kind of make each artist their own new genre of music. So Scene Queen, she doesn't really fit in a box.
Right.
Noah doesn't really fit in a box. Lolo doesn't fit in a box. Destroy Boys. So we're not just saying who's the future of the scene, what is this going to sound like in the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
And it's super innovative to look in that way, because I will say I love Scene Queen. I saw her at a Research Chicago show and I loved it, but I have a lot of people that I know and they're just not super into her, and I'm Scene Queen is what Hollywood Undead was in
100%.
the 2010s.
Yes.
And I love Hollywood Undead, tried and true, 100p, but we have if you like this, then it makes sense that you would like this other form of it, but you're just being critical because it is a woman.
But you know what? Some of the biggest acts, it starts out that way, and, and that's the time where any brand or artist, and especially Scene Queen, says, you know what, I'm going to double down on what I'm doing and really force down everyone's throat what I'm doing, so they can start to understand and they can get on board. They're okay, I get what she's doing.
Right. I think it's really interesting that compared to so many other acts that we listen to and just have their album discography of, where they're doing these types of concept albums that tell the story of somebody else, but then they're acting as it. It seems like you are your own actor within your own storyline, even if it is different. But and you
course,
kind of kept it going.
We all are, you know, and I think that comes from the fact that like I wanted to write before I wanted to be in a band, and I was just kind of a movie geek and a comic geek, and when I say geek, like that gives it too much. I admire geeks. I admire people who like toughed it out in like freaking Texas, like. And had to fight jocks and stuff. Like I was in LA where like those were the cool kids, you know, but I was still technically a geek. Like I devoted my life to like movies and just dreaming and reading books and thinking about stuff like that. And then, you know, it was really age appropriate to get into punk music. And so I went with it and I loved it. And it was just perfect for me. It was more visceral than like one day I may write a novel or direct a movie or make a comic, you know? So it was like, fuck yeah, I can do this right now. And I love music just as much as I love this other stuff. But initially I was always just thinking about things in that sort of, you know, a dude who's taken mushrooms and thinks he's deep way. You know, so I also think it's funny, you know, like, you know, what you said is awesome and like, I appreciate it, but I also think it's like pretty hokey. And I see that, you know, the only thing that really separates me from like someone who would be like, yeah, just like, I'm so sorry to say this because he's nice, but like Jared Leto, you know what I mean? Like where he's like, I became the Joker. I was mailing them like boiled potatoes with blood in the middle and they would have to, you know, like, and he's that same way in his band, you know, like he gets up there and I'm like, fuck, dude, that's like Michael Jackson level, you know, like he's so confident, but he's not like humping girls' faces. He's like in some kind of weird sci-fi thing that he's narrating in his head. And I admire it. And it's like, but I'm no better because like if you were like a Harvard professor or something, you would look at like my exercises in like intellectualism and like meta and you'd be like, this is ridiculous. Like this guy's just in an emo thing. And I've seen that, like that energy started out for me when I went to like Sarah Lawrence College and I was like the bro, you know what I mean? Like as much as like I'm self-aware and all these things, I'm an actor in this thing. It's like, they're like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like you just like smoke weed and like, you know, like it was just like, I was a dork there in a way because I was too norm. So I've kind of fallen into that almost more than I've fallen into, I play into a character I think that's dumber. And a lot of people play into a character that's like cooler or more like worldly and you know what I mean? Like they're the leader of some revolution. And I'm like, no, like because my self-image tends to be negative. Like I've risen above that over time, but like I'm an insecure fucking person as fuck. And the only way I can be secure is owning that.
Yeah, I found like with let's go with another like concept thing of like My Chem, Black Parade, Three Cheers too. It's like I think it tends to be like I want to tell a story that is autobiographical. I'm using quotes for the listener, but it's not quite about like it's not like Gerard is saying this is what is happening to me. He's giving like a little bit of like I can separate myself from the art in that way. And like the way you're describing it is exactly what I liked about Say Anything is like there is no separation here, even though there is. It's still very much like
it's just, that's really cool. And that I've never really thought about it that way, but it's true because that is the distinction. I think what it is more like, you know, if Gerard is like, you know, Spielberg in that scenario, and he's telling these really cool, big stories that, you know, spin out of his psyche, I tend to like, as much as possible, make it a blatant thing. Like, I mean, God forgive him if he was guilty, but like I grew up a lot with like Woody Allen and people like that. And even if you look at like Kevin Smith, like all his movies are just like his friends chilling in a fucking mall. It's blatantly, you'll have the main guy. And even if he's like a super handsome dude, like whatever, he's still just Kevin Smith. Like they just talk like him. And he makes fun of the movie Clerks in the Jay and Silent Bob. Like that's definitely the thing, you know, but at the same time, like, you know, Silent Bob isn't exactly like him. And even Jay, you know, for that poor actor dude who like went through all that shit, like I'm sure there are times he's a great example where he's like, I play into this thing of being like a complete idiot and I do talk like that, but it's me at my worst. And so therefore it's more amusing and like my art is making fun of myself. So why would I sit there and be like, God, I feel good today. I'm sober. Yes. And like, there's some moments like that and Say Anything that are really sincere, but like you said, where I'm using like an interpretation of my own events, embellishing it and also interpreting it in probably the worst way possible. You know what I mean? So like Molly Conley, like that wasn't a real person. It was just a collection of my insecurities about being in a band, that it was selfish and misogynistic. And I just wanted to be as honest as possible. And I admit that to even bring levity to that is almost problematic, but I think I can't help but be that kind of problematic. Like I always will, in a way, apologize and be like, I hope the next generation has a better go. And they seem to, you know what I mean? Like Hotelier or like Modern Baseball or Front Bottoms, like there's a little bit less of that toxicity. But I think, unfortunately, I grew up with a lot of fucking toxicity in my family, in my teenage years, and then especially the early years of the band. So I think it's something I have to address. And now, especially coming back, it just is what we represent to people, was rising above that, I think, and making fun of it and feeling like being able to laugh at it and feel like there's some real emotion in this scene that was becoming really contrived. And like, the people who initially like Is a Real Boy were like into Brand New and into Taking Back and all that stuff, which I love, but we're able to go, okay, but I'm starting to feel a little bit weird here because there's dudes and there's like, and it's like, I'm feeling a little bit like everyone's getting stuck up and it's not what it once was. And that in and of itself became almost like a prideful thing where it's like, I'm above this. So it's just it's a post like scene thing. So I can't not address that. I wrote the last album was about like a literal, a closeted homophobic serial murderer, like the guy from American Psycho. And it's like, but then who would stop Bret Easton Ellis from writing American Psycho? Just because it's a comment on a part of him that feels closeted. He's like open gaming. So I just think it's like, I hope that maybe like with like stuff like podcasts and social media, blah, 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 blah. But like in the sense that it does get more integrated where people in bands or young people, you do see that though, because I'm so sorry, I'm rambling so bad.
I love this media analysis. Let's go.
Yeah, please.
Well, I just think you see like the people that my kids like, you know what I mean? Like Oliver Tree is my like younger kid's favorite. Like they know all his songs and everything, but he's doing what I did essentially. He's more than just a dude in a band. He's making fun of himself. He's like, but he's really earnestly enjoying it. He enjoys fashion, but it's like ridiculous fashion. And he also is like a comedian, So I think that's almost like where to this day, I'm still striving to do more of that. I wrote comics. I continue to do that. And, I think my mistake in going, I'm a writer, was going like, I can be both. And I don't have to like resent this part of myself because I love it. And the only reason I resented it was because I was psychologically fucked up and letting it like run my life.
You're on your 7th studio album. And you say you're in the middle of it, so I don't want to like, say, what does it sound like? Can you play it for us and all of that? But like, if you want to give like a tease to the audience of like what you're writing and what we should expect.
Well, to be really honest with you, I don't really know what to expect yet. We've written a ton of songs and we've recorded, more than an album's worth already, but we're so all over the place, we like every kind of music that there is, honestly. And so, right now we're just trying to figure out what it needs to be as a whole, if it even needs to be cohesive at all. I mean, I don't even know anymore, like people are just kind of doing whatever they want to do. So I don't know, we're trying to decide if we want it to be like some cohesive body of work or if we want to just, kind of make every song be what it's, written to be, and then just kind of let it like be its own thing, So, we're, like I said, all over the place, and we don't really know what the hell we're doing at this point.
I mean, while you're like putting together all these like different songs and like just trying to think of like how it's going to form, are there any specific like kind of like influences for like modern music that you've started to pull from, especially right now, like hard rock has seen like a huge resurgence, or maybe it's just because I listen to Octane a lot nowadays because they have Sirius XM again. But I've been seeing like this change in sound and a lot of people having a lot of takes on that development, the development of the sound, and wanted to know if you guys are also like maybe dabbling in that.
Yeah, I mean, we try to push everything, and try to, come up, incorporate different styles into whatever we're doing. You know what I mean? So, I think even one of our newer songs has like a mandolin part in it, or so it's got like, which I don't know. This song's kind of. It's a song that we've actually been playing live, so some people have heard it, but it's kind of got like that 4 on the floor pop thing going with some big guitars and then, like I said, like a mandolin part, and it's got just things from everywhere that we tried to pull in, and then then we've got some other songs that are another song that we play live. Is real. It's heavy, but it's kind of got some industrial elements to it, I guess, and some electronic elements. So, we're always trying to listen to other songs that are popular just for inspiration, just to see what other people are doing, and just see if it inspires us to come up with something new.
So it could be a pop punk record.
Actually, yes, we have. Funny you say that.
Hinder goes pop punk.
We actually have written like three different like pop punk songs for this particular album. I don't know if it's going to make it or not, but actually one of our favorite songs is it's like pop punk, like as pop punk as it could be. So, I mean, like I said, we're really all over the place. We write every different style. I mean, Marshall and I, and actually in Mike and Blower, we're in it too, but for a while we did a country project. And then, Marshall and I had this, very short-lived alternative project. And, like I said, we're all over the place. We love everything.
I mean, I always say, like, I think that's the kind of the right way, especially now when it's just like, I might hear one song and then it's like, it's like one song gets on one playlist, right? And you're like, okay, that's the song that like fits on that playlist. Maybe I go to the artist and it's like, okay, they're all different songs, but it all fits like different moods and different genres and all that. And I think that's just like kind of normal now, where like, you don't have to fit in that box so cleanly and so perfectly. It can be just like, yeah, I do what we do, and this is like the culmination of these people together in the studio that we get this out of it. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, man, me too. And honestly, like, I think it's really cool to see these artists come out now that it's really obvious that they're not being told what to do behind the scenes by a label or whatever. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jelly Roll, but
yeah.
that dude is doing everything. It just seems like he just does whatever it is that he wants to do, and it's always great. He's super talented. His songs are awesome, but they don't necessarily fit into one tiny box. They may be country, they may be rock, they may be rap, they may be whatever. Like, I think that's super cool, and for us, like, we draw inspiration from that for sure.
I know with like Jelly Roll too specifically. I work in radio, and one of our programming directors for the country station, we had him on one of our like shows over the summer, and they came back in and they're like, "Oh my God, we had this guy named Jelly Roll." And he's like, I was so blown away, but I was so confused because it's not traditional country, but everyone was like losing their minds. And I'm like, well, I heard Jelly Roll on Octane. So I didn't know that there was that much of a crossover per se until that instant. I'm like, that's really good, because that means he's just expanding his audience.
Yeah, he's incredible. We had the opportunity. We played Blue Ridge Rock Festival, and he was headlining another stage, and we got to go watch him, and that he's legit, man. He's the real deal. So I don't know, like I said, it's very inspiring.
Yeah, I think like with all that too, it's just like it's what fans are gravitating towards, and like I think genre has just fallen completely out of it, and it's way more about like the authenticity of the artist and like connecting to the people that are playing it and the lyrics and the music around it. And it's like people like that just tend to like rise to the top because they just are that authentic type of person. There's not that like sheen over them from a label and like the polish of like, I mean, like talking like MTV and VH1 back in 2005 and stuff. And it's like, there's just like very like untouchable artists and you're like, I don't know them, but like, I'll say it in this way. I never thought in 2005 that I'd be sitting across from Hinder right now. So it's like one of those things where it's like, well, now I know there's like this authenticity to artists, right? Like these are regular people who just like creating things and want to play in front of regular people and just have that connection. And I think that now that we've sort of like been able to break down a lot of that facade, it's just like, okay, I'm just liking what this person is creating and what this person is about. And now you get to have more of that interaction than, you know, just seeing somebody on TV and being like, cool, whatever.
Yeah, man. I don't know. This whole, like, I guess it's kind of like a new movement too, you know, with, you know, like I said, there's like a lack of record labels and corporate interests, you know, kind of putting their nose into the creative process. And, you know, I think that's awesome. I think it kind of, it needed to happen, you know, for music to continue to grow. So I think I kind of feel like maybe it's a little bit less in the rock world, you know, kind of where we live, I guess, but it's getting there, you know, it's starting to happen more and more. And I don't know, it's very exciting to me. You know, I think rock is finally starting to catch up again. I think as a result of that, people are finally growing some balls and kind of pushing back a little bit and doing their own thing.
So kind of talking about like how there's all these people in the industry and like how we want them to be really cool, really chill. Can you talk a little bit about industry kids and kind of like what that is going to encompass?
Yeah. Well, I am spilling some massive tea in industry kids, which is what I do best.
Oh, shit.
But it's pretty much my hatred of the industry. And it's based on I had a very wild weekend. I don't even remember when I wrote this song. I've been holding on to it for like a minute because I remember my team was like, it's not the right time. Like everyone's been in love with this song for a while and they're like, it's not the right time. It's not the right time. They're like, okay, now is the right time. But I had this weekend where I had met Pete and he was interested in signing me. And I guess this was like last summer or something. I don't even remember, and we were taking meetings with labels together to see like who wanted to like sign me for an album. So we were meeting like A&Rs and we went to, I don't even know if I can say this because it's live, but I'm going to. So here we go. The tea is being spilled. So we went to Soho House, classic. Do you know Soho House?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
We have one out here.
Yeah.
So the meeting was at Soho House, and it was with this person that was like 22, and like her dad was like, you know, the CEO of some label or something. And like me and Pete were just sitting there, and I think I was just being like a psycho, and I was talking about like sucking dick or something, and she was just like so disturbed by me. Like she was literally like, who are you? And me and Pete left, and he's like, yeah, like, I don't really think that was the right fit for you. And I was like, yeah, I definitely don't think so. And then the next day, my friend was playing a show, and it was like this backyard show. And it was like a house party type of thing. And it was just like all industry kids, like all like living in LA. There's like this big circle of like young 20s, A&Rs. Like they all just like go to the same bars. They all hang out. They're all just like, you know, bullshit. And and they were just all there, and it was literally like my nightmare of a party. I was like, I am just gonna smoke weed in the corner and then leave because this is not my vibe. So I think I literally left, and I was like, wow, that was traumatic. And then I had a session the next day, and I was like, I'm ready to talk some shit. So then Industry Kids was born. So it's pretty much just like me dissing them all, but it's a banger.
Look, I stand by that 100%.
Yeah.
That is very much within my vibe of like the tea to spill.
It's just not my vibe. I'll just leave it at that. And I just was like, that period of that period of time was just me taking a lot of meetings and meeting like a lot of industry people to figure out like make my team. And it just wasn't it. And I was like, this is fucking awful. So I have some things to say. And yeah, but I found a great team of people that get me. So that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So you don't need to go through all of that again, ideally.
I don't know if they would put me through that again. Hopefully not. I don't think so. Just the industry is just, yeah, it's messy. I think it's like that for a lot of things. I mean, I think the TV world is maybe just as bad, but honestly, who knows?
I mean, I can't say much from being here in Chicago. I know that like when we, you know, what we're looking at here is like, you know, sort of how they do it in LA or the LA sort of vibe or the LA sort of experience, you know? First time I ever went out there, I was like, this is awful. Everybody just talks like the same, but they all talk like they've got this thing going on, but they all like don't have anything going on. And so I went back. I went back after a friend of ours moved out there, and he works on a couple of internet productions. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get it. Like I'm starting to understand at least like what that is. But I certainly think that if you're not like originally from LA and then you go there and you're like trying to talk to people, you sort of just get that vibe from people. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Be a person, be normal, be like a real person.
I'm like, we're all people. Like, why can we like, it's just like, I don't know. It's just really uncomfortable to be around sometimes. And I know not everyone's like that, because I've obviously met A&Rs that I really like, but you know, there's just like a very intense circle here. And just like being at Soho House, I was like, this is so creepy. Like everyone's just sitting there on their computers, like looking around. And I'm like,
oh, that makes it worse. I feel like you were trying to liven up the chat then.
Yeah.
So I feel like they should say thank you.
Yeah. Right. It was just a really weird experience. I mean, being in LA in general is, maybe I need to move to Chicago.
Listen, we're all pretty nice here.
It's again, we were talking about the weather before, which is like, you know, the average conversation, but look, it's been raining a lot in LA this year, and it's as far as I can tell, it's either like raining or way too hot. And all I'm saying in Chicago, you know, we got that temperate Midwest temperature, you know, we're just chilling out here.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I need to do that.
And just remember, when the world inevitably does end, the Midwest, specifically Chicago, because we have the lakes near us, we'll be safe.
Yeah.
Everyone else,
California's going to break off, and just God only knows what's going to happen to it.
Yeah.
The dinosaurs are coming back.
Okay. That would be incredible though.
Yeah.
Because we all know we all want to ride a dinosaur.
I would love to ride a dinosaur. I'm not going to lie.
Do you think a Triceratops would let you? Like if you met a Triceratops, do you think that Triceratops is going to let me ride?
I feel like Triceratops are chill as fuck.
Yeah. I get the same sense.
I feel like they would be like, hop on, let's go for a ride, smoke your joint.
Yeah.
But that's the vibe I get from Triceratops.
So to hark back to what we were talking about before we were recording, as we've been doing here and there, we obviously talk a lot about like Chicago local legends, but we were talking about also from the hometown that both, you know, adopted hometown, but both of us basically, how we have a lot of punk bands.
Yeah.
And pop punk bands that come here and
Say
nobody
the name of
wants
the
to
town.
talk about.
Say it. Say the name of the town with your whole chest. Let the people know what town we're talking about, Lizzie.
Naperville, you can say it.
Yeah.
Naperville.
You
I
can
was
say
trying to be
Naperville.
like, yes, let's do it and intro it.
You know, you can say it.
No, I thought Lizzie was kind of avoiding it slightly out of it's like.
No, I was trying to like intro it to toss it.
I see.
I mean, you've got, AM Taxi, you've got Lucky Boys Confusion, you've got, us, got me from the Bollweevils. I mean, you got Chicago members. I mean, that's the thing. You've got, Jeff Pizzotti is from out here, from Naked Ray Gun. 30 Seconds Deep back in the day, all these bands. I mean, it's like there's all kinds of fun that comes out of the Western burbs, so you could go farther out and go to Elgin and start talking about, Slapstick and the Lawrence Arms and, new bands like the Usuals and things like that, or talk about Tricky Dick from back in the day, the Four Squares, all these bands that were out from the Western burbs. And it's like, it's cool that, even the Chicagoland area has kind of its own, regions when you have, punk and how it sounds and how you can tell that a band's from a certain region, bands that are from, Addison versus bands that are from, Elgin area, like I mentioned, that's kind of had a lookoutish kind of jawbreakery sound. And then you've got, all these Chicago bands that sound more buzzsaw guitar-y and industrially sounding in some senses, kind of like us and Naked Ray Gun and Effigies and Peg Boy, things like that. So it's cool. I mean, we're all just Midwestern, right? So even when you go farther out and you go to like Minnesota and, Detroit and, even you consider Ohio, you get all these bands that kind of have this similar sound. Indiana, all of us have this Midwestern homegrown kind of sound. Hell, I mean, you think about most, emo bands, it's like the Midwest is where all that kind of grew. I mean, you get, bands like Braid and, when you go back to even farther with Friction and Gage and all those guys that came out of that started all this stuff up. It's like, that's where, we have this unique thing of being between both coasts and, having our own influences of what we do here. Maybe the winters make us have this problem as well too. But the Midwest has its own kind of unique kind of sound to it. And then I was having a conversation about this just the other day, that a lot of areas that aren't on the coast, like you don't have, New York and that area versus, LA and California. And then you have all these areas that are in between, and, Florida and Colorado and all these places. A lot of people gravitated towards, these different areas to kind of have influences for their bands. And many people pick Chicago as their biggest influences, where they had, love for Peg Boy and Ray Gun and us and Apocalypse Hoboken and the Smoking Popes and all those bands. And that's cool, Screeching Weasel, the Vindictives, Oblivion, all those bands. And that's kind of cool that the Midwest has this draw of people coming to it and people from outside of the Midwest looking to us to kind of influence them, which is cool. So we have our own unique thing. And a lot of us had influence from like, the East Coast and the West Coast and hearing all these things and then making it into our own sound here. So yeah, I mean, Naperville has a lot of, punk rock legends that came out of it.
I will also throw in Callie Mossy.
Yeah, Callie Mossy, yes.
I went to high school with Sam and John.
Yes.
We interviewed them, and I got into the call, and they're like, "Did you go to this high school?"
Yes.
And I'm like, "Why do you look familiar?" Like, because we went to high school together. I'm like,
we were just talking about that at the Res Against show. So we were talking about that Naperville stuff. It's like, you're still in Naperville? I'm like, yeah. So I mean, it's. Listen, we keep putting people out there, I guess, despite all the bad rap that it gets, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Listen, I think, what the bad rap comes from, this is how you get the punk music, is that you have problems that are there, and then you write the songs about it, and then it's a circle effect.
There are problems everywhere. Nobody's exempt.
Yep.
Nobody's exempt. We're like the city on the Globex city on The Simpsons. And the Globex, if you ever watch The Simpsons, there's an episode where Homer gets a job with Globex and they go to the town, and it's like that's Naperville. Basically, that's what it is.
It's I mean, punk especially is a music that's made out of
I'm joking. I love my town. I'm not going to sit there and disparage it because it's too easy. It's like, it's punching down. It's like too easy to do that. It's like so lame. Oh, my hometown, blah blah blah. It's like whatever. I like my town.
Listen, we're not
fine.
all a day to remember. Let's calm down.
Right. It's all good. It's fine.
Punk is like, I'm from here and I'm going to try to make a change. And pop punk is like, I got to get the fuck out of here. And they're from a much nicer place than anyone who wrote a punk rock song.
Right.
It's like a meme that's been going around where it's like pop punk bang is like, I got to get out of here. And then it's like a $3 million McMansion that they're trying to leave. And it's like, dude, your life is fine. What are you trying to leave?
Yeah, maybe they're missing something. I don't know. They're missing something there's something in their heart that's missing. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not I mean, I like pop punk to listen to it, but I don't play in a pop punk band, so I don't understand it. I don't know. I'm old, not pop.
I'm staying in this hometown, not leaving.
Not leaving,
Right.
we're fine.
Yeah. I mean, we moved away and came back. It's like, what do you do? It's like, okay, what's that all about? You get older and you're like,
They all end up like, I think Chicago especially, it feels like.
What it is, it's like, every punk rockers, talks about, School of Hard Knocks. I mean, I can't send my kids to the School of Hard Knocks. That's what it is.
Yes.
So they got to go to
You're like, I went here and I did have a good time. And now my kids
Yeah.
don't really need to go there. So,
where are you from? School of Hard Knocks, man. Where's your kids going? Oh, they're going to the prep school down the corner.
Because that shit sucks.
we had to go uniform shopping.
Yes. They have braces on their uniform, though, and spikes. Because my kid's hardcore.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like that.
Punk rock kids.
Exactly.
It'd be like the hard knocks that they have is that they have metal brace instead of Invisalign.
Right.
That's where
you
humble them.
Lord, that's the humbling we're doing. It does feel like of all the places where people are like, I'm going to go back to there. It's like Chicago and the Midwest does feel like that city where people are like, even when they move away, like to an LA or to a New York, they're like, yeah, but I still feel like that Chicago draw and that like, I was mostly just thinking of like Fall Out Boy and they're just like, yeah, we still love Chicago. And it's like, y'all live in LA except for Andy, who I still think lives in Milwaukee or somewhere in Wisconsin. So it's like, yeah, you're all in LA now, but you're like writing songs about Chicago. And it's like, can't leave it. Can't get away from it.
Yeah, you can't. There's something about the Midwest sensibilities, I think, that kind of stays with you wherever you go. So, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like putting on an old sweater that fits well, and you like say, hey, this is great. You might be someplace else, but you're always going to pine for, the things that give you comfort. It's comfort food. Chicago's comfort food for everybody. So it's good.